Hey there, this is Sunday morning. A lot of people go to church on Sunday in the Christian world, in the West, where Christianity is most prevalent. I might call this a Sunday morning Course in Miracles discussion, because you're free to comment or reply, or share your own ideas. But this is mostly about A Course in Miracles. And A Course in Miracles is a set of books. If you aren't aware, the Bible is a book, and A Course in Miracles is, actually you could say the Bible is a set of books because it has the books of the Bible. So, the Bible is one book that has multiple books, and A Course in Miracles, you could say, is one book that also has multiple books because, well, you can buy a single bound edition of A Course in Miracles. And it was scribed or written by Helen Schuckman, depending on your perspective. I think the books exist to give us more peace and happiness. So with Sunday, if you're watching this, if you're watching this on a Sunday, let's say you're watching this on a Sunday morning, just like I'm making this on a Sunday morning, then I hope watching this helps you orient yourself to have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you already experience perfect happiness and perfect health. And so I don't know, let me just ponder for a second to see if I have anything more worthwhile to say about A Course in Miracles. I guess I gave a little synopsis of what it is. I guess the question, if you go to traditional Christian churches, they often ask, like, well, how, they often talk about how, the Bible will tell you how to lead your life. But, A Course in Miracles sort of does similar things. It's more general. It more gives guiding principles and guidelines, or sort of ways you should orient yourself, or it talks about in the Miracle Worker's Prayer, it says I, but in this case I'll say you. It says, you do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because he who sent you will direct you. And it says in multiple places that you can receive guidance from the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit will speak to you and give you guidance as loud as you're willing to listen. Be still, listen, and that. So yeah, as far as how so if you're listening to this on a Sunday morning, either today or some other Sunday, or really any day, according to A Course in Miracles, if you want to try and use some of the principles in the books to guide your life, really be still and ask the Holy Spirit, or your inner guidance, as it also refers to it, or God, what should you do for the rest of your day? Maybe that's to go river rafting or go to the beach, or maybe if you have a business, work on your business. It doesn't say to. There is a passage where it says, it says I need to do nothing, but it says you need do nothing. Ultimately, it's a spiritual principle that you don't need to do anything, because you are perfectly taken care of in reality. But yeah, so what should you do for the rest of your day? Yeah, maybe call a friend or call a family member. Whatever you do, in lesson 101 it says God's will for you is perfect happiness. So if God's will for you is perfect happiness, then it seems that, well, one, you could do nothing, like it says, I need do nothing, you need do nothing, if that will bring you happiness. But if doing something will bring you happiness, then by all means go do something. If that do something is go earn money so you can go do fun stuff, then go earn money. Or if, that means go walk your dog, go walk your dog. But, every moment, you could almost think in one day there's an infinite amount of infinitely small moments. I think that's an interesting way of putting it. There's an infinite amount of infinitely small moments, and in each of those infinite amount, in each of those infinitely small, my English, in each of those infinitely small moments, you have a decision, to follow your inner guidance. You have a potential decision. You have a potential to make a decision, a potential to do something differently, a potential to change something. So, for this moment and the rest of your moments, make them count, enjoy them. Do nothing if you feel called to. Do something if you feel called to. But whatever it is, it should be in line with, worthwhile principles. Peace and happiness and forgiveness and compassion and joy. Serenity. Yeah, A Course in Miracles doesn't say you should tithe. I'm just thinking about A Course in Miracles in sort of relation to the Bible. The Bible has all these rules, regulations, and A Course in Miracles has more guidelines and principles rather than... And the Bible has guidelines and principles too, but in addition to that, it has a lot of rules and regulations and condemnations and so on and so forth. But another thing I think would be good to remember is that, in section 24 of A Course in Miracles, it says, heaven is here, heaven is now. There is no other time, there is no other place. Something like that, something along those lines. It does say, I believe it in direct quote is, heaven is here, heaven is now. And that's in the public domain version too. And there is a public domain version of A Course in Miracles. So, if you can't afford to buy a hardcover or paperback version, there's public domain versions online that you can get for free and legally. So, I would encourage you to go for those if, getting and you can also buy an electronic version. You can buy an electronic book version. Those are available too. So if the hardcover, softcover, or electronic version that cost money are all prohibitively expensive, and they're not that expensive, but everybody's in a different place, then you can always get the public domain version. That's an option. So I think that's good. But so I'm just thinking if there's anything else worth noting about any of this morning. I'm sure there is, but I don't want to take up any more of your day if you've gotten through this far. Go forth and enjoy the day. Go, try to experience perfect happiness. Act in accordance with worthwhile principles and values. I know another thing maybe worth noting is, it's in A Course in Miracles it says, I believe the quote is, it's very close to, infinite patience will produce immediate effects. And I think the quote is something like, it will now do you good to remember that infinite patience will produce immediate effects. So, infinite patience. So that means if you're, like a metaphor, if you're at a train station and you're waiting for the train, let's say that train is perfect happiness or perfect peace, or, whatever it is. If you're waiting for that train to come, and if you feel called in your heart from God or the Holy Spirit or wherever that you're supposed to wait for the perfect happiness and perfect peace to come to you, then if you're metaphorically at like a train station, that means you're just going to sit there and entertain yourself for a potentially infinite amount of time. So potentially a trillion years, potentially trillion years. You're going to wait for that train to come, whatever that train is, with regards to the effects. And if you embrace that infinite patience, then, according to A Course in Miracles, that has the potential to produce immediate effects, which I think is a nice thing to think about. So I think, and whether or not, A Course in Miracles is your thing, to utilize the principle of infinite patience, infinite perseverance, it's probably good. So another thing, no, I might end it there. I'll just reference lesson 95. And I think it's, I am one self united with my Creator. Okay, and since I said that much, I'll say one other thing. And this is again from the public domain. Everything I've said, and I think really will say about A Course in Miracles, is pretty much from the public domain version in all versions, but also the public domain version, if nothing else. There's a quote from that lesson 95, and it says, I think this is exactly it. I think I memorized it. I am one self, united with my Creator, at one with all creation, and limitless in power and peace. Now that's a pretty bold thing. You. So it says I am one self. So it says you. So you are united with your Creator, at one with all creation, and limitless in power and peace. I am one self. So you are one self. We are one self. Yeah, I haven't applied the we to it, but yeah, we are one self, united with our Creator, at one with all creation, and limitless in power and peace. So, what are the implications of that? And elsewhere in A Course in Miracles it says you move mountains, or you can move mountains. It also says you can heal the sick and raise the dead. Why haven't we done more of that? Maybe because there's no room on Earth. Maybe we need to colonize other planets first. Again, this is just conjecture, theory, playing thought exercises. But seriously, why not colonize other planets? I'm talking about A Course in Miracles, but I think it's a great idea. Elon Musk is trying to do it with his SpaceX. He says he wants to, I think he's referenced potentially dying on Mars of old age. And why not use science to eliminate aging? And there's a guy named Aubrey de Grey, who's a biomedical gerontologist, who theorizes that we could potentially eliminate aging in the next maybe 20 to 30 years, potentially. And he has an organization called the SENS Research Foundation. So I recommend you check that out if you're curious, if you feel called to. And if you don't feel called to, don't. But yeah. So now I think that may be it. Another thing, lesson 76. So yeah, it wasn't it. Lesson 76 says, I am under no laws but God's, or you are under no laws but God's. It says or what does it say? It says one of us, you, me, you or I can't remember what it says exactly, are under no laws but God's. And I think we could extend that to say, we are under no laws but God's. What are God's laws? God's laws. God's laws, law blog. But in reference to the Bob Law laws. Bob Law. Anyway, that's a Arrested Development reference. There's a lawyer, as an aside, there's a lawyer named Bob Law. Bob Law. And then, so he had a blog called the Bob Law. Bob Law's Law blog. Which I think is a tongue twister, sort of fun. But anyway, so yeah, so what are the laws of God? It's, well, one, we're in heaven, according to A Course. So yeah, this is according to A Course in Miracles. Do I believe all this? Do I think we are actually in heaven with North Korea and Syria and poverty in Africa? Well, that's a really tough question. Are we in heaven? Well, according to A Course in Miracles, we're in heaven. But yet you look around. I think it says in truth we're in heaven. So, that's a hard thing to wrap your mind around, your head around. How do you reconcile that? If you believe in A Course in Miracles. And of course, if you don't believe in A Course in Miracles, then you just think, well, that's stupid and a bunch of bull, which is fine. But I think of all the spiritual paths I've looked at, I think A Course in Miracles seems to be the most true, in the sense of, so many religions and faiths promise happiness or, whatever. In A Course in Miracles, follow, and even in the book, in A Course in Miracles, it says, don't believe any of this, question it all, test it, and after you test it, if it seems true at that point, then buy into it. So, as far as the things testing it in A Course in Miracles, and there are prescriptive things in A Course in Miracles. In many places, there's a lot of italicized lines if you look through it. And those, before those, it often says, remember this, or if you feel this way, think of this. But yeah, a lot of the prescriptions in A Course in Miracles are often like, remember this, or think this. And then, it says like, this may bring peace or help. So that's the way you can test it, if it's not going to take a lot of time. And you don't have to either. It's not an evangelical thing so much. It doesn't say anybody's going to go to hell. In fact, I think it says we're all in heaven. And that is one thing I'm trying to wrap my head around. Like, how, what does that mean? How can that be? But if nothing else, I think it says we all will go to heaven. And I think that's the main message, is if nothing else, we all will go to heaven. God will reconcile all things. We will all find peace. And even that, for people who've done really, for people who've violated others' rights in extreme ways, I have a hard time reconciling that. And one way I do is, I think this is what Seventh-day Adventists think. The people who are, bad folks, rather than going to a lake of fire, they just get destroyed. God just obliterates them so they can't wreak havoc in his kingdom. And we don't need to do it. Just after they, rather than go to hell, they just get destroyed. And I think that's, if God's a loving God, and I think God's a loving God, I think that makes a lot more sense than people getting sent to hell. But yeah, and again, that's my own sort of interpretation, or how I see things, and I could be wrong. And there's even people within, mainstream Christianity, possibly you could say the edges, but there's, who preach, I think it's called universal Trinitarianism, where it's a Christian doctrine which says that everybody's going to go to heaven. So that's even within, the outskirts of mainstream Christianity. Yeah, so maybe I will end it there. Well, I am sort of enjoying talking about this. So anyway, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, watch my other videos, and have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, or night, whenever and wherever you may be. Adios.